September 11th, 2001, a Tuesday morning in late summer. The sky over the northeastern United States is cloudless, visibility unlimited, the kind of day pilots call severe clear. 19 men have spent months in preparation. They've taken flight lessons in Florida and Arizona. They've studied airport layouts, memorized gate procedures, timed security rotations. They've purchased tickets on 4 separate flights departing within 40 minutes of each other from Boston, Newark, and Washington. The plan is not complicated. It relies on a single assumption that the men with the box cutters will be the most dangerous thing aboard any of those aircraft. On that morning, the assumption holds. The cockpit doors are on lock. The hijackers know this. The passengers do not yet know what is happening, and the course of the world will change before morning is over. But let's change one thing. The year is now. The attacks are being planned again. The same ideology, the same objective, the same basic operational model. 19 men, 4 aircraft, 1 morning. Everything the planners intend is structurally identical to 2001. What has changed is everything around them. And what changed is the result of spending 23 years and roughly $100 billion building a system specifically designed to stop this exact scenario from working a second time. The question's not whether the plot is real, the question is where it breaks. Because it breaks. The only uncertainty is at which layer. The morning begins before the airport. This is where it starts now. The National Counterterrorism Center operates around the clock, processing intelligence from 17 separate agencies. The FBI's Joint Terrorism Task Forces, which now number more than 200 across the country, run human source networks and digital surveillance programs under FISA core authorization. The NSA's communications collection capabilities flag specific keyword patterns and known contact networks. In 2001, the CIA and FBI possessed fragments of information about the plot that were never combined. That structural failure produced the 9/11 Commission. What it produced after the commission was the Director of National Intelligence position, mandatory information sharing protocols, and a unified terrorism watch list that did not exist before 2001. Any of the 19 men whose names appear in that system do not reach the airport. No prior contact with known networks. No flagged travel history. No names in any database. The first layer does not catch them. They arrive at the airport. Terminal check-in in 2001 required a government-issued ID that was rarely scrutinized beyond a visual glance from an airline employee with no law enforcement authority. Today, that interaction looks different. The TSA's secure flight program runs every passenger name against the terrorist screening database and the no-fly list before a boarding pass is issued. Not at the checkpoint, before it. The check-in agent works from a system that has already cleared or flagged the name. The no-fly list contains roughly 64,000 names. The selectee list, which triggers enhanced screening, contains an additional tens of thousands. These lists draw from watch list data continuously updated by law enforcement, intelligence agencies, and foreign partners through arrangements like the Five Eyes Intelligence Alliance. The men check in. Their names return clean. Boarding passes are issued. The first layer did not stop them. The second did not either. They move toward the security checkpoint. This is where the physical architecture of the airport becomes the next barrier. In 2001, airport security was operated by private contractors hired by individual airlines. Screeners earned near minimum wage. Turnover was over 100% annually, and training averaged 11 hours. The checkpoint itself used magnetometers that detected large metal objects. Box cutters, which were legal to carry, passed through without issue. That system no longer exists. The Transportation Security Administration was created in November 2001 and federalized the entire airport security workforce within a year. Every TSA officer now undergoes at minimum 160 hours of classroom and on-the-job training. The checkpoint uses advanced imaging technology, millimeter wave scanners that produce a generic body outline and flag anomalies regardless of material composition. Ceramic blades, non-metallic weapons, liquid explosives. The scanner sees density and shape, not metal alone. Assume the scanner operator has a medical emergency. Assume the checkpoint is short-staffed. Assume for some reason the imaging unit is down for calibration and a magnetometer is substituted. The men pass through. Their carry-on bags move through the X-ray system. Modern airport X-ray units are dual-energy systems that distinguish organic from inorganic material by measuring how differently objects absorb 2 separate X-ray frequencies. Explosives, for example, have a characteristic organic density signature distinct from clothing or electronics. CT-based baggage scanners, now deployed in hundreds of airports under the TSA's ongoing modernization program, produce full 3-dimensional cross-sections of every bag at every angle. The system flags anomalies automatically and sends them to a human operator for review. Bags pass through. The men are now airside. They board the aircraft. This is where the world of 2001 and the world of today diverge most sharply. The first and most significant structural change after 9/11 was not a scanner or a database, it was a door. Reinforced cockpit doors capable of withstanding small arms fire and grenade blast became mandatory on all commercial aircraft aircraft operating in the United States airspace by April 2003. The door weighs significantly more than its predecessor. It locks from the inside using a deadbolt controlled by the flight crew. It cannot be opened from the cabin under any circumstance while the crew has activated the lock. In 2001, a determined hijacker with a box cutter could walk into the cockpit within 60 seconds of breaching the first-class curtain. Today, that door does not open. The hijackers move through the cabin, they threaten passengers, they move toward the cockpit, the door does not open. The flight crew has already activated the emergency protocol. The crew has reached the transponder. In 2001, the hijackers on all 4 flights disabled the aircraft transponders shortly after taking control. When it goes dark, the aircraft disappears from secondary radar. In 2001, this was not an immediate alarm. Controllers assumed radio failure. Today, a transponder going dark on a domestic flight triggers an immediate response protocol coordinated between the FAA and NORAD. The North American Aerospace Defense Command, which on the morning of September 11th had 4 fighters on alert along the entire eastern seaboard, now maintains a significantly expanded quick reaction alert posture. 14 alert sites across the continental United States keep armed fighter aircraft on strip alert, fueled and ready to launch within minutes of an order. The moment the transponder goes dark and radio contact fails simultaneously, the FAA notifies the NORAD Battle Management Center at Peterson Space Force Base in Colorado. The call takes under 2 minutes. The scramble order follows immediately. F-16s from the nearest alert site are airborne before the aircraft have traveled another 50 miles. In 2001, the fighters that launched on the morning of the attacks were sent in the wrong direction because of communication failures and confusion about which aircraft were hijacked. The 9/11 Commission documented every one of those breakdowns in detail. The response architecture was rebuilt around the specific failure points the Commission identified. Direct communication channels now connect FAA facilities to NORAD in real time. The alert fighters know the target aircraft's last known position, heading, speed, and altitude from primary radar return alone. They do not need the transponder. They already are airborne and climbing. The aircraft is still in the air. Inside the cabin, something's different from 2001. On the morning of September 11th, the passengers on the first 3 aircraft did not know what was happening. They followed the historical script for a hijacking, which said to stay calm, comply, and the situation would resolve on the ground. The passengers on Flight 93, the 4th aircraft, learned through cell phone calls what had already happened in New York. They knew the planes were being used as missiles. They voted, they acted. The cockpit was not reached in time, but the intended target was never struck. That information is now part of public consciousness in a way it was not at 9:03 on a September morning in 2001. Any passenger on any aircraft who understands that a hijacking is in progress will not sit and wait. They know. The fighter aircraft reach visual range. The crew aboard the military aircraft is operating under rules of engagement that did not exist in codified form on September 11, 2001. The Secretary of Defense now holds authority to order a shootdown of a commercial aircraft that has been confirmed as a hijacked weapon. The authority was contested on the morning of the attacks, with Vice President Cheney issuing an order that had no clear chain of authorization and that the fighters never received in time. That legal and procedural ambiguity has been resolved. The authorization chain, the communication protocol, and the criteria for employment of force are documented and trained. The fighters have the aircraft in sight. They have attempted to make radio contact. They have rocked their wings in the universal military signal. Nothing changes aboard the target aircraft. The Air Marshals. On September 11, 2001, the Federal Air Marshal Service had 33 agents covering the entire national airspace. Funding had been cut repeatedly through the 1990s. The program was a bureaucratic afterthought. Within weeks of the attacks, Congress authorized a massive expansion. The current Federal Air Marshal Service deploys thousands of agents on domestic and international routes. Marshals sit in civilian clothing on randomly assigned flights, armed with specialized fragile ammunition designed to incapacitate without penetrating the aircraft's hull. On a domestic flight carrying any of the 19 men, the probability that at least one Federal Air Marshal is aboard is not certain, but it is not negligible either. If one is aboard this aircraft, the scenario ends here. The plot continues. The passengers act. In the forward cabin, a group of passengers has collectively identified what's happening. Several have attempted to call family members. One has a satellite-capable phone. The information spreading through the rear of the aircraft is the same information that reached the passengers of Flight 93. The decision process is faster than it was in 2001 because the cultural memory is universal now. Every American adult who boards a commercial aircraft knows what the passengers of Flight 93 did and why. The men at the front of the cabin have weapons, but they're outnumbered 100 to 1 and the cockpit door is still locked. The fighters are in position. They've received updated authorization stabilization. The aircraft is tracked on primary radar, its altitude and speed consistent with an aircraft no longer under normal pilot control. The intercept crew has completed every required step in the protocol. A weapons-free authorization is transmitted from the Battle Management Center. The crew acknowledges. At this point, the scenario constructed here, the one in which every single layer of security from intelligence collection through passenger intervention has failed simultaneously, is reaching its terminus. Every system that was rebuilt after September 11th was rebuilt because of a specific documented failure. The cockpit door exists because cockpits were accessible. The air marshal expansion exists because coverage was near zero. The NORAD posture exists because 4 fighters were inadequate. The secure flight program exists because passenger names were never checked against intelligence databases. The reinforced transponder protocols exist because going dark triggered no immediate alarm. Each of those changes addresses one failure point. The scenario described here requires all of them to fail on the same morning simultaneously across multiple flights. The redundancy is not an accident. It's the architectural lesson of 19 Min and a clear September sky. Any single layer catching any single operative on any single flight breaks the chain. The reinforced door alone breaks the chain. The air marshal alone breaks the chain. The fighter intercept alone breaks the chain. The plot requires a perfect sequence of independent failures, each one compounding the last, before a second aircraft becomes a weapon. In 2001, that sequence existed because none of the barriers existed. The system assumed hijackers wanted to land. The new system assumes they do not. The aircraft does not reach its target. Whether the cockpit door holds, whether a passenger subdues the lead hijacker in the aisle, whether the fighters reach weapons release parameters first, the outcome in any realistic modern scenario diverges sharply from 2001 before the aircraft crosses the coastline. The 19 Min of 2001 succeeded because they exploited a system built around a threat model that had already expired. The system that had replaced it was built around them specifically, modeled on their exact methods, their exact tools, their exact timeline. It was built on the assumption that they would try again.